Good morning, and I'm so glad that you've joined us for week number 3 of our series called Influencer. It's all about how people influence us and how we influence people. This morning, let me ask you a question. Have you ever skipped a rock across a lake, or maybe you've thrown a huge boulder into a pond? What happens? A wave comes out, and then smaller waves come out after that, and we call that a ripple, right? But with a ripple, what we know is the biggest wave, the biggest impact is closest to the point of contact. And when we talk about influencing or being an influencer, the same is true. We have the biggest impact on the people closest to us. And sure, maybe somebody on social media or a celebrity may be more like a boulder getting thrown into a pond where the ripples go out quickly and far and faster than we could ever get a message out. But the same is true even when we skip a rock across a pond. Those small moments throughout our life where we have influence in somebody's life can make a big difference. But here's what I want you to begin to think about. Who has the most impact and most influence on your life? Is it the social media influencer who threw a big old rock into a pond? Or is it the person closest to you who maybe doesn't actually have that big of an influence on the world? And I would bet it's that person closest to you, because just like a ripple, the people that have the biggest impact on us are the ones that are closest to us, the ones who really know us, the ones who know our story. And they can change our lives for the better or for the worse. Let's take it personal real fast. Let's put you on the paper. Maybe you could write me or your name, and you're here. That's where you've made impact. And now you've got circles that are going to come out of this. And so this first layer right here, who's in that in your life? Could be your parents, it might be a sibling, could be your closest teammates, your best friends, and people like that. These are the people that you have the biggest influence with. They're the ones who trust you with things, they're the ones who listen to you, they're the ones who give you the best advice, and maybe you do that in return. And then you've got another ring of influence that might be right here. And who would fall into that? Those are maybe school friends that you hang out with at school, but maybe not outside of school. Still great conversation. The same thing might happen with teammates or your neighbors, or that could even be some of your extended family. And then you probably have a third circle of influence, and these are the people that, these are the people who are in your class, sure, but you don't spend a lot of time with them. Maybe they're people on your team that you don't know all that well. They could be extended family that live a far way away. They could be people that are friends of friends, or maybe even your siblings' friends. Sure, you've got a little bit of influence, but not a lot. And then beyond that maybe is people that you've met on Xbox Live, or you have a simple relationship with because you know they exist. And of course, there's more rings out beyond that. But what I want you to be thinking about this morning is this. These are the people that you have the most influence on. They're the people you have the ability to impact most. And then as you get further out, your ability to impact and influence those people becomes a little bit less. So now that we've talked about the practical idea that our life sends ripples out to the world around us, where we actually can begin to affect everybody that we come into contact with in one way or another, let's actually dig into God's Word and see what it says. I'm going to hit pause on the ripples metaphor for a moment, and we're going to switch to a new one in Scripture, actually in Matthew chapter 5. This is in the middle of one of Jesus' sermons, and he's sharing this idea, and he's actually giving a little bit of understanding to what it means to be an influencer. And so in verse 14 of chapter 5 of the book of Matthew, it says, "You are the light of the world, like a city on a hilltop that cannot be hidden. No one lights a lamp and then puts it under a basket. Instead, a lamp is placed on a stand where it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your good deeds shine out for all to see, so that everyone will praise your heavenly Father." Now, Jesus right there is already beginning to talk about influence. And what he's saying is, you and I have influence. We are like a lighted city on a hill. But here's the thing, we don't live in a time period where light is hard to find. In fact, there's light pollution everywhere we go. But maybe think about it this way. Have you ever been on a road trip, and as you're driving in the distance you see like the glowing M, or you see the glowing arrow for In-N-Out, and you're like, oh, we've made it, there's food, and then all of a sudden you get hungry for junk that you weren't hungry for just a moment ago? That's kind of what Jesus is talking about here. That idea that we are this lighthouse, that we are this city on a hill, that we are this giant sign that is different from everything else around it and impossible to ignore, because we know this: light shines in darkness and you can't miss it. Right? If you walked into a dark room and hit somebody with the flashlight, they'd know where you were, because the light doesn't disappear in darkness. Instead, darkness disappears because of light. And so Jesus' idea here is, let's be this city on a hill. Let's be the light that we can be, and let's do the things we've talked about so far in the series and that we've talked about a ton this year in FSM. Let's be helpful to other people. Let's share the wisdom that we've gained. Let's reflect Jesus better. Let's continue to share the gospel with the world around us. So on top of influencing the whole world, we actually have this ability to influence each other too. And the Bible has a lot to say about how we as Christians are to influence one another. In Hebrews chapter 10, it actually spells it out pretty clear for us in verse number 24. It says, "Let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works. And let us not neglect our meeting together as some people do, but encourage one another, now that the day of his return is drawing near." Right? This idea that we are supposed to encourage each other. We're supposed to motivate each other. We're supposed to push each other into acts of love and good works and being kind. Basically, what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to help promote each other so that we can shine brighter. We're supposed to help other people direct their light in the way that it should go. And the Bible actually says this in Romans chapter 12, verse 9. "Don't just pretend to love others. Really love them. Hate what is wrong. Hold tightly to what is good. Love each other with genuine affection and take delight in honoring each other. Never be lazy, but work hard and serve the Lord enthusiastically." So again, this idea that on top of influencing and motivating each other, we're supposed to love one another, because when we love each other, we can actually do more things, right? It actually puts it this way, that we can work hard and serve the Lord enthusiastically. What I find interesting after reading passages like this is the reality that the world is full of big problems, right? You think about it, I don't need to list them off for you. You probably had 1 or 2 or 10 pop in your brain just because I said that. But the Bible is actually really interested in smaller things. It's interested in the relationships that are closest to us. If you think about that ripple analogy again, when the rock hits the water, the biggest distribution is actually where the rock hits, closest to where the rock hits. And as it gets further out, they get smaller and smaller. And what I think God knew was that the relationships that we have the most impact on are the ones that are closest to us. And so the Christians that are closest to us, we actually need to spend time loving. We need to spend time encouraging. We need to spend time motivating, because when we do those things, those people can shine brighter. That's where that city on a hill analogy comes in, right? Where we can shine brighter. And so when we're close together with Christians, what we need to do is we need to encourage one another. We need to share the wisdom we have, and we need to help each other shine brighter. And that's the big idea here. Take care of who's close to you. Now, understanding that the closest people to us aren't all Christians, we let the Christians influence us so that we can have a good, positive influence on the people around us. But what I actually find interesting is when we talk about influence, the Bible has another thing to say in 1 Corinthians. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 33 comes after the author describes people that are influencing this church, people that are doubting the church's faith and what they say. And in verse 33 it says, "Don't be fooled by those who say such things, for bad company corrupts good character." And one of the warnings that we have for today is actually this. If the ripple closest to us, if the people closest to us aren't encouraging us, or we don't have very many Christians that are close to us, bad company is going to corrupt good character, right? The closest people to us are going to influence us for the better or for the worse. And we too are going to influence the people closest to us for the better or for the worse. And my hope is that the people closest to you are better because they know you, not worse off because they know you. And see, so here's what we want to say this morning is we want you to focus in on the closest ripple while being aware of the furthest out, right? So here's the idea: dream big. Know that maybe someday your influence could be large. Maybe someday you'll have a video go viral. Maybe someday you'll be successful in some business somewhere, and you'll actually have a pretty big ripple. And dream big so that you can have a big influence and a big impact on the world. But what we want to also encourage you to do, and most importantly, is live small. Know that the best impact, no matter how big your circle gets, the best impact is the people that you're closest to. And so to be a good influencer, live small, but dream big. So speaking of making a big difference by paying attention to something small, let me give you just a totally practical, real-life example. In the early 1900s, there was a Swiss inventor, and he would often go on walks with his dog or hikes with his dog, and when he would come inside, there'd be those little seed pods, those little burrs that attach themselves to your dog or your socks or something. You've actually probably experienced that when you've gone camping. And he decided, I'm actually gonna take one of these and I'm gonna look at it under a microscope and I'm gonna figure out why it's sticking to my dog. And what he noticed was there were these little hooks that were looping themselves onto his dog's fur. Now, he didn't create some special soap to get rid of those, but instead he thought, what if I recreated that? And he invented Velcro. I bet you didn't know Velcro's been around for that long, but he looked at something small and then he's made something that is gigantic, right? He's made something that we use all the time. And that's how paying attention to something small can make a big difference. So what I want to do is I want to actually maybe prove to you a little bit how something small has actually had a big impact on you, how something small has changed you. And so I want to do something small. I actually want to just spend a few minutes reflecting on the last week or maybe the last 2 weeks. And so with that, let me ask you these couple of questions and then give you a moment to reflect. Number one is this. Think about in the last week or two, what is something that happened that encouraged you? What opportunities did you have in the last week or two to encourage someone else? In the last week or two, who is someone that showed you love or support? In the last week or two, who is somebody that you could have shown love or support to? And when's the next time you could actually do that? So my hope is that you'll spend some time this week thinking about those questions, or even more time today after we're done. But what we want you to be thinking about is this, that you have the biggest impact with the smallest group, right? The people that are closest to you. Now, what that means is be thinking about that group that's closest to you. Be thinking about the people that are right around you that you can impact, that you can share things with, that you can share life with, and that years down the road they can go, you had the biggest impact on my life. Now, sure, maybe you'll get lucky, maybe you'll have a big break and you can impact millions, but the reality is for most of us, that's not gonna happen. And really, if you look at a lot of the biggest influencers in the world, like we talked about a couple weeks ago, they really don't have all that much to say. I'd rather have a great message with a small group than a big group and no message. And so with that, what we want to encourage you to do this morning is this. Live small. Pay attention to the people that are right around you. Have a big impact in their life, and then dream about having a bigger influence someday. Let me pray for you, and then I would invite you to join us next week as we close out this series. God, thank you so much that you have given us your word that encourages us to live small, that encourages us to see the people that are around us who we can have the biggest impact on. God, rather than chasing a big audience, can we love the people that are closest to us? God, can you give us an eye to see the people that are closest to us with the biggest need? We love you, Lord. To your son's name we pray. Amen. With that, we will see you next week to wrap up our influencer series.